Clayface, one of my personal favorite villains. And I gotta say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know if they really did him justice.
Most people can't do that.
And be a villain. The second episode of Batman Cape Crusader. This one is pretty good. I think it has some really kind of strong elements. And I think overall, it has this kind of cool, creepy, horror detective kind of vibe, which I like all of that. I'm a big fan of Clayface, and I like what he is, and I like the way he's interpreted in the original series. And I know this is a whole new iteration, and I was, talking a lot about that in my past couple episodes, but it's one of those where if it's not broke, don't fix it. Clayface is a really strong villain as he is, and this takes it in a different direction, and I want to break that down more for you.
Something's wrong here, boss. I can feel it.
And one of the things that, the hook of this episode, it's real short. I mean, you see the girl getting dropped off, and then she kind of looks frightened, and then boom, we're into the titles. Again, maybe that's more just a throwback to the old horror kind of thing, but it didn't work for me. And I think that the hook has some strong potential to be like, oh, what's this going to be about? Let me lean in. This could be exciting. And this one just doesn't quite do it for me.
I may have caught a few of those.
And again, some of these early episodes, it feels like they're serving a purpose. They're more functionary to go, we need to establish certain characters or certain feels. And again, I think, well, we only have 10 episodes. We got to make them all count. I love Montoya's, the detective role that she's playing, and her really kind of leading the investigation, and all of those elements are really cool. Again, I love the aesthetic of the 1940s in Hollywood. I love that whole thing. It's all a lot of potential. But Clayface, we'll get to that. Clayface doesn't quite fire on all cylinders for me.
He didn't have the right face.
And we have another kind of a role change here. Lucius Fox is Bruce Wayne's lawyer.
Don't say anything else.
Lucius Fox classically has always been somebody that also knows Batman's identity. So for this element in there of him being his lawyer, does he know who he is? And is that going to come into play with Batman, having a lawyer on his side? I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I kind of like that.
Get your things, Bruce.
I was a little hard on the animation in my past episode, and I do have to say the sequence here, the running on the rooftops, very cool. I think that really is a great sequence. I really enjoyed all those elements. And again, classic Batman, running on the rooftops, having a good chase sequence, always does a show good.
So what's your next move?
I talked a lot about the design of the episodes in a couple of the past episodes, but I didn't talk about the Batcave. This Batcave version is, again, a great throwback to the 60s, more stripped down, more of a lab, tables, less high tech. You don't have the big monitors and all that because of the time frame. And again, it just makes me love that 30s and 40s aesthetic even better, because it does put some limitations. We don't have a big bat computer. Even in the 60s one, they had the old cards that they would stick in there and punch them and all that. But this really is more of a crime lab, and they do the clear board that you can see through, which is great for cinematography. But it's a great look. I really like that design and utilizing those limitations with the 30s and 40s. That you can't just punch it in the computer and get results and go off and fight crime. This, you have to really kind of do some real hardcore detective work.
Need a crime to have a suspect.
So let's talk about Clayface. So the design of the character, he kind of feels more like a scarecrow, and I'm not inherently do I object to that. It gives very Phantom of the Opera, kind of the old horror look vibes, which I think is cool. The red scarf, great design. And again, it's just a personal preference. I have the Clayface original action figure right over here. I like that design. I don't know, the big kind of clay monster. Now I know this is a different one. This is Basil Carlo. I know he was in the comics. I don't think I have any of his issues. Matt Hagen, that's the one that I'm more familiar with because of the animated series. That's just a personal preference. I don't dislike or like. It's just it's not the one I'm used to.
We all have our parts to play.
And I like that, it's still the actor, it's still him trying to repair his face. I love that storyline where he's trying to become more handsome and more leading man. It's sort of like they're trying to do a little bit of the tragic story, and make us feel sorry for him, but at the same time trying to make it this mysterious horror kind of thing. And I don't know if they both work. I think they should have went one direction or the other. Either make him a tragic villain and make it somebody that we feel for and we feel bad for him and he's just reacting to the poor hand that he was dealt.
If only I didn't look like this.
Or go the other direction and just make it a mysterious, horrific, horror kind of monster character. And I just feel like we sort of are dabbling in both ends and just doesn't work for me. The tragic story was done so well in the original series and in the comics where he was sort of a victim in that stance and is just trying to get back. I don't think they should have went that direction. But it's like they borrowed a little influence from it, but also wanted him to be this mysterious monster.
It was experimental.
It was neat how the mysteriousness of the mystery of, who is he? Whenever you're talking to a new character, like, is this, Clayface, or is this Clayface? Is this really who they say they are? Is that somebody else? We saw Basil Carlo die or dead. So now who is Clayface? Like that's all kind of fun and good.
Your point, sir?
One of the things that I really love about Clayface, the fundamental thing, is his shape-shifting. I like seeing that. I like seeing him, use different tools and, make his hand a blade and those kind of things. That all kind of adds fun elements to the character. And they sort of didn't do that. So it's like, I don't know. I think I have such a hard time because I like Clayface so much. I just want that same sort of Clayface. And I'm like, this should have just been a different villain. I feel like they got too far away from who he truly is. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too hard.
Did others share your opinion?
And also in this episode, I didn't feel like there was a lot of Batman. Again, it felt like more of the focus was on Montoya, which was great to establish her, but I hope they didn't burn up this episode just to establish, here's this key player, Montoya as the detective, which is great, but it should have been more infused in there. And of course, they throw in the flashback, which was sort of necessary to get a little background of who Clayface was, but my feelings about flashbacks. So this one just sort of missed the mark for me, I think.
What?
One of the standout moments of this episode was the sword fight, which again, they don't shy away from really kind of utilizing the influences and just kind of doubling down. They did this whole-on sword fight on the set of the movie with Batman and Clayface, which is very much a throwback to Errol Flynn and Zorro and those kind of 40s movies from the 40s, which absolutely was an influence for Batman. So I love that they sort of like, yep, here it is. This is a Batman doing a sword fight in an old castle. Awesome. I like that.
Well, now I'm embarrassed.
I'm struggling a little bit with this episode for the elements of who Clayface is and the character and the direction they're going. I like the horror elements. I'm not a big horror fan, but I like that kind of old-fashioned horror elements. That sort of is fun and works. And I like the Hollywood backdrop. So there's a lot of elements that were fun to watch, but I think the story just didn't quite connect for me. And if you're interested what I really love about Clayface, click the link on the screen to see my review of the original Clayface episode, because that really just hits on all cylinders. A great episode and a great connection to a strong character, tragic villain. You got to check that out.